Welcome back to Breakfast at Stinsons. This is John Asher Thompson, and today we have an old friend of mine, Rodney Rice, with us. Rodney and I go back to college days and a lot of travel together. Rodney went to Wall Street and then has started a couple of companies very successfully. He is on to Waldo Photos, and we are thrilled to have him today, so stay tuned. He'll have a lot of interesting things to say. And subscribe to our podcast, Breakfast at Stinsons. Thanks.
So was the game just amazing?
Oh my gosh, the game was amazing. It was funny. We had the worst seats we've had in years because they just sent us 2 seats and I didn't do anything about it. I just took them and it was a great deal. And so we were kind of elevated, which was, so it was like we were a little removed from the game. It was kind of weird. It was like watching on TV. It was weird, but it was awesome. It was like,
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it was incredible. It really was. Although
That's
I was did you watch it, I guess?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, people were leaving. The OU fans were leaving because there was, it was such, and apparently I guess on TV, and I wasn't watching on TV, but it was just such a beatdown. I mean, the third quarter, it was like, you just got this sense like, oh my gosh, this could be a 50-point game. Anyway.
Yeah, I wasn't counting my chickens before they hatched. I wasn't, I felt good when we got up 21, but you knew anything could happen.
Yeah, well, especially love the 11-second drive with Kyler Murray.
Yeah. I didn't notice on TV that the OU fans were vacating. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's I think that it was 21-point lead and it looked like it was trending further in that direction, So
yeah, they couldn't stop us. So
and you saw they fired Stoops. Mike.
No, I didn't see that.
They fired their defensive coordinator after the game.
Did they really?
They did.
Oh my God, I didn't see that.
Well, wow. Cool. Well, look.
All right, cool.
We're gonna roll here, and
awesome.
So, welcome to Breakfast at Stinsons.
Great to be here.
We're glad to have you. Rodney Rice, an old friend and entrepreneur extraordinaire, is on with us today, and so Rodney, we'll just dive in here, and I know you're busy, and we'll jump in and keep it kind of short to the point, and you can get on with your day. So I want to hear. Let's start with just the quick bio, and tell our listeners who you are, and you can do it as fast or as slow as you want to do it, and then I'll follow up with a bunch of questions. But just kind of who you are, where you're from, family situation,
Sure.
Anything else you want to talk about.
Absolutely, yeah. So I grew up out in West Texas. Product of San Angelo, Texas. Went to the University of Texas for college. When I got out, went straight to kind of grew up on Wall Street. Cut my teeth for a few years on Wall Street, both Houston, New York, Buenos Aires, and then ultimately landed in Denver. And there I transitioned. I was part of the founding team behind Einstein Bros Bagels and helped that company build 600 bagel stores over a few years and go public and whatnot. And through that process, really got the entrepreneurial bug and left that enterprise with another guy by the name of Michael Bowden. And we founded what today is Home Advisor. Founded it back in 1999. And so, yeah, I've been a technology entrepreneur for just about 20 years, which seems crazy. Actually met my wife as part of the Einstein Bagels deal. She was working for our parent company, and we have 3 children. They are almost grown now. I have a sophomore in college out on the West Coast, and 2 daughters. One that just started actually at UT about 6 weeks ago, and a junior in high school. So just been a technology entrepreneur and father, and other than when I'm not building companies or raising kids, I like to be outside.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to that, and I want to hear about the companies you're on. I also will add, but our lives have intersected a bunch over the years, and you threw in the Buenos Aires thing. I like that. But I think I told you this, but I went to work at Sherman and Sterling, and the first time that name ever popped into my mind or head was when you said, "Oh yeah, you need to go talk to those guys at Sherman and Sterling. You were doing YPF or something. They were counseled."
That's right.
To the company, right? And
Crazy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I left out for obvious reasons. I left out our 6 months in Madrid together in college
yeah,
just to protect the just to protect the not
well,
innocent.
we've got Madrid, we've
But
got Buenos Aires in common, we have UT in common. We also have, I think the
you
Broncos. I came out. You were just getting going with your startup, and I was doing a deal out, TV guide deal, and I flew out to Denver, and had to navigate the riots and the bonfires. Oh, we may have just gotten cut off. You there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Crazy, Kenny. Okay, sorry, we got producers involved. We had just massive thunderstorm. Anyway, lightning, whatever. So coming back, I remember '99. I think, if you recall, Denver had won, which I never really understand. You win the Super Bowl, and we're going to riot and blow things up, but that's what happens. As I recall, in Denver. So do you remember that?
I do remember that.
And
I do remember
I think
that.
that would have been. Is that your sophomore in college? Is that the baby? You had a baby sitting on. I remember that was a very foreign concept to me. '99, is that
Yes,
right? Yeah.
that's
Okay.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Mine was the size of a football back then. I remember
Right.
that. Yeah, I used to watch Cowboy games with them on the couch and hold them like a football. But yeah, I no, my unfortunately my most vivid memory of the Broncos, which drove me to not like them even when I was living there for a decade. I mean, not to mention also growing up in West Texas being a Cowboy fan, but I think you and I might have bet, or at least I did. I
Oh.
bet on Elway on one Monday night game, and lost what was probably like a month's worth of rent back then or
Oh.
something. It was, it wasn't,
Well,
a lot
you
of money,
know,
but
I was just talking. I had dinner Saturday night in Dallas at Texas OU. We were just discussing this for our listeners. The amazing Texas OU game this past weekend, and we were. I was with an old friend, a mutual friend of ours, and your name actually came up at dinner. You know what it came up over? It's funny, gambling. This
that's
story.
weird. Cause
Yeah. Well, I told him
I'm not a huge gambler, but
Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you why it came up, because this is a little pearl of wisdom that I think you threw at me when we were sophomores. But I thought, I'm a smart guy. I can probably pick winners, better than losers, and so so
Famous last
famous
words.
last words. So I gambled. I bet on Saturday's games, and sweated it out and made it 11 p.m. and somehow broke even. So I was gonna tackle 6 games the next day, and I managed to lose every single game on Sunday. And I don't know what the loss was, but I remember at the time, because I'm a pretty rational guy, I'm thinking this is like nearly mathematically impossible, actually.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
so then like any smart kid, I'm like, well, how do I get my money back? And clearly, you
Got to
do a
double up the
parlay.
catch up.
Yeah, you do a parlay on Monday night.
The infinite wisdom of a 19-year-old.
So we do a parlay. The Browns and the Colts were playing on Monday night, and I was winning on both fronts. I had the under, and I can't even remember which team, but I mean, it's almost like divine intervention. So we get to Monday night, I'm winning with a minute left, and whichever team I had bet against returned for the first time in 11 years a punt for a touchdown,
Oh
and it
no.
busted the over, and the and I ended up so I ended up getting a job and working my way through the rest of college. There you go. But the funny thing, so I was having dinner and I said, yeah, and this person shall remain nameless, but he knows who he is. He goes, oh yeah, how much did you lose? I said, I don't know, but it was too much. I said, I remember Rodney. I was talking to Rodney, and he said, the problem with gambling in college is, you lose money you can't afford to lose to make money you don't need. Anyway,
Right.
that's the problem with gambling. So anyway, this guy, which is so funny, he well, I shouldn't even say this. He definitely will remain nameless, but I don't think I remember. He was like selling medical supplies, and a mutual friend, another person came to him and said, hey, I have a great idea. I'm going to become a bookie. And he said, oh, okay, I'll back you. And so he said he goes, it was really great until it wasn't, it was like, and everybody, I forget what game he mentioned, but everybody bet one direction. And he was like, oh my gosh, he goes, I had to go get a loan to pay off everybody. So anyway, crazy stuff. So anyway, so that's our gambling history. So, I remember you were at Merrill Lynch, and then I came, by the way, so many fun things to think about. Madrid was amazing. I will never forget my first interview. in New York. And you were there too. I was, if you recall, you were living with your cousin, I think, Upper West
That's
Side,
right. Correct. Yeah.
and had those interviews. And I remember I couldn't get enough of it. It was like 10 degrees. It was so cold. And we went to this crazy place called Polyesters. I think it was Polyesters. Remember that, the
That's
80s?
right.
Which
That's
is,
right.
the funny thing, you think about this is like how youth is. This would have been like 1994 or something like that, right?
Probably two. Yeah, four. Yeah, three
Yeah.
or
So
four.
94, and we go downtown, no sleep the whole weekend, no sleep, and we party. And what's so funny is you're like, oh my gosh, we're like, it's throwback. We're partying like it's 1980s, right? You're like, that was like 5 years ago. Sit here, isn't that
Right.
funny? Like
Right.
if you're gonna party in the 80s and like, oh my gosh, it's a throwback. You like, well, at least it's got to be like 20 years, but
Exactly.
to a 25-year-old, 5 years is a long time.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, so that's what we're here to talk about.
Quarter of a
Weird stuff like that. So, all right. So you were Merrill Lynch. You did Einstein Brothers. That was when that concept was kind of. I mean, and I guess it's ultimately sort of worked out. I guess they ran into some headwinds.
Yeah, I think it's similar to our to the little tangent memory lane we walked down with gambling. I think we both learned valuable lessons
Yeah.
about the follies of gambling on pro sports, and
Yeah.
and probably neither one of us probably do it at all anymore, or not much. But I think that was the same thing with Einstein's. It just was one of these great formative experiences where I learned a lot about business and what makes good businesses and bad businesses. And it was funny. This is crazy. So you'll appreciate this. So I don't know if you remember, but from Madrid, this all links back to Madrid. So when we were in Madrid,
Everything comes back to the Puerto del Sol.
everything comes back to Madrid. So when we were in Madrid, there was that rotisserie chicken restaurant called Casa Mingo.
Oh yeah, yep. yeah.
So it was birthed there probably after about 4 flasks worth of wine, doing our best Hemingway impressions or whatever. But I decided at that moment that I was going to take that concept to the United States and turn it into a national chain. And so I was obsessed from that point. What was that? Our junior year in college. And so it was like divine intervention. I had left Merrill after working on the equity capital markets desk, and I was traveling through Central and South America. And I called back home, and my dad said, I remember I was in this plaza in Guatemala, and I was on a old school payphone. And my dad said, this guy named David White from Merrill's trying to track you down. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So I came back around Christmas time. I was going to be in the States for a few weeks, and I was supposed to go travel Asia with another buddy of ours from Wall Street, Nick Oram. And I called David, and he said, you've got to come to Denver. I need to talk to you about this business opportunity. You have to do this deal. And I was like, well, I'm supposed to be going to Asia. And I said, what is it? And he said, these guys have bought Boston Market or Boston Chicken, and they're rolling it out nationwide. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So this is how I'm going to learn the restaurant industry inside and out. And then I'm going to go open, Casa Mingo and roll it out nationwide. So I got sucked into this deal, which then ultimately, became they ended up the guys behind Boston Market were the guys behind Blockbuster Video. So they had tremendous multi-unit retail expertise. They had a real estate engine. They had a development engine, so on and so forth. And so the whole idea there was they were going to build this common infrastructure and then go find the next Starbucks or find the next Payway or what have you, and roll it out nationwide. So Einstein's became the second concept in that platform. And like I said, Mike Bowden and I ended up being part of that team. But
what was it? What hit him? I mean, you still see Einstein around, but just from a business point of view,
Einstein's a great business.
Yeah.
Boston Market was not a good business. So what they did with Boston Market was they took a 1,200 square foot concept that was probably doing $2.5 million a year, all takeout, and they completely bastardized it and it was probably $400,000, or it was probably $250,000 to put one in, and had 150% uh, uh, IRR on it, and so they turned that around, and then the next thing you know, flash forward 3 years, they were spending $1.2 million a unit, scratching out probably 1.2 million dollars of top line, and it was at best high teens,
I was going to say,
return or whatever,
right?
So it was terrible, right? And then they exacerbated it by so then they had pressure because the takeout dinner wasn't enough to fuel that capex and that footprint. Oh, by the way, the footprint went from like 1,000 to 1,200 square feet to like 2,500.
Oh yeah.
And so then they went into lunch, and they tried to compete with McDonald's. They tried to serve real food at lunch and compete with McDonald's. Well, you can't do that. So anyway, so really that whole situation there was the pressure of the parent company was just leaning down. It was just weighing down on Einstein's. Einstein's actually great business.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna go into the restaurant, if you're gonna go into the, well, this is as an owner of several, and we had this conversation before you started. But if you're gonna go into it, and yours does this, but you need to serve something addictive. I mean, look at the one. It's either got to be bread based because it's high margin, which is pizza and bagels.
Yeah.
Or it's got to be addictive. It's got to be caffeine or grease.
Right.
Look at Taco Bell. Taco Bell's frequency back in the day is like 7 times. That's what Starbucks do. Whatever. So it's got to be it's got to be grease, caffeine, or you have to have super low cogs because you're taking something bread based and selling it for whatever 90%, whatever.
I'm gonna digress for a second. How many Taco Bell orders did you have a day in college? I know I was there twice a day, especially when they had 2 bean burritos for $1.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Plenty.
I was more of a Taco Cabana guy because it was right out the back door.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, so bottom line, long story short, I learned that the restaurant business is not where I wanted to be, and that's what drove me into technology and doing things that scale. Doing things where there's infinite scale. It's not the problem. Einstein's, we had 14,000 slightly over minimum wage employees that had the opportunity to disappoint us on a daily basis, like not showing up to work and the bagel wall's empty. I'll never forget we were gonna do this big radio campaign one week in Denver, and we kick off the campaign. We're just blasting radio, and the baker doesn't show up and the bagel wall's empty, and so people are just rushing in, and there's no bagel.
Oh, gee, yeah. Well, I tell you, we've been blessed with good managers, but I mean, I can't even tell you as
you have.
We've learned the hard way. I mean, being in New York, and we open at 6:30, and I get a call at 7:45 in New York that no one's at the store. Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, no, that's horrible.
Bad call.
I used to think I wanted to get into the hotel business, and what's funny, to your point, what I think about the hotel, like I would never want to run a hotel. I used to think I would. Because I think about, so you got a 350 room hotel. That means 350 people can complain to you that morning, right? Horrible.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody romanticizes about these things. The difference between everybody and you is you actually go do them. You don't let go of the romance. But no, it's serious. I mean, but the issue with Einstein, the issue with all these multi-unit retailers, and the reason why you're able to have the great staff that you have is because it's somewhat contained from a unit standpoint. When we built a store a day.
Oh yeah.
For 2.5 years.
That's called food and beverage metastasizing.
Yeah, the pressure you put on every time you get a decent staff, then you peel off the assistant manager, go make them a manager at the next store that's opening, and you dilute your talent pool faster than. I mean, most people don't realize this, but I think Starbucks had 25 units after like 20 years.
Right.
And if you plot their trajectory, the amount of time they took to really build the base and have that thing screwed down where it was repeatable was crazy.
Right.
Crazy long.
Yeah. No, and we've learned that the hard way, as you and I have discussed. So talk about your first concept quickly. I want to hit we've got about 20 more minutes, and I want
Sure.
to keep this tight. And
Yeah.
so I want to cover like your business stuff. I think your ideas are really interesting. I want to talk about Waldo, and then I want to talk about some of the kind of the I don't know the less tangible things about kind of living and family and decisions and how you make choices and stuff like that. So quickly,
Sure.
talk about your as you know, however long you want to take, but your first business idea.
Yeah.
What was the exit there, and then what you're doing today?
Sure. Sure. So Home Advisor, as I mentioned, I started it back in 1999. And the simple observation there was the internet was really just getting rolling. You had euphoria around Yahoo and Amazon and eBay and whatnot. I was fortunate that I was in Denver. I wasn't sitting in Silicon Valley, kind of sucking off the hysteria and exhaust of that. But me and this other guy, Mike Bowden, like I said, we actually spent about 6 or 9 months looking for a concept, looking for something to start, and both pretty analytical. He had worked at Drexel and whatnot, and so we looked at things just pretty analytically and pragmatically. And the basic observation there was just that local services were completely broken, and that there was a lack of information and about the services and an inability to efficiently find somebody to solve
And
their
local
needs. So,
services, you mean like handymen, things like that,
well,
plumbers.
yeah, I mean, we were looking at it even a little more broadly than that at the time. But yeah, ultimately, what emerged was a platform really home services, right? So home improvement, repair, and maintenance. And we went after it first because it was the largest, most cohesive bucket. It was $180 billion a year that people spend on that kind of thing, and just completely broken. I mean, no homeowner knows. Our dads used to fix everything, right?
Right.
And they used to do all the stuff themselves. And then like you and I, our generation just kind of didn't pass down. So now, we can't do anything. And then now you project it on the millennials like that.
Yeah.
Millennials like
Yeah,
making bread
millennials
down.
are pathetic. I'm just kidding. Becca's sitting here. I'm just joking. She knows I'm joking.
No, but it's pretty crazy, right? How quickly it's happened where nobody's capable of
Yeah.
fixing anything themselves, and nobody knows what it should cost, and nobody knows,
Right.
whether they're being told the truth or whatever.
Well, I got to
So
stop. I got to stop you real quick.
yeah,
That'll give you time real
yeah.
quick. I was thinking about my dad, which I think I've shared before. But my dad actually wasn't much of a fixer guy. Like that just wasn't his thing, which was why I always think about when I got on the plane and it was icing and sleeting and he was flying the 777. We were in New
Yeah.
York and
Yeah.
I was like, I'm looking out at and they're like defrosting the wings and I'm thinking, I don't know that, he does light bulbs well, right? But can he fly this airplane? Anyway, but we made it to Paris. It
Yeah.
was awesome. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember that. He wasn't. Yeah, I remember he wasn't a real like. We always
And
found it
I'm
fascinating. He's a
definitely not.
pilot, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, most pilots are pretty mechanical, but yeah, he was different. My dad, on the other hand, was a urologist, but thought he was also a master tradesman, plumber, electrician, carpenter, mechanic, car mechanic.
Yeah.
Like, no, just stick to vasectomies. Like, what are you doing? You're gonna kill yourself. You're gonna get electrocuted. We were
Yeah.
sure that he was gonna die of electrocution, but anyway. So yeah, but so basically, yeah, just simple observation that what I saw the internet was doing back in the late 90s was it was moving information more efficiently than ever before, and it was facilitating communication better than ever before. And so I just envisioned in my mind's eye this ability to build a mousetrap where you could go onto the internet in 30 seconds or less, describe what you needed, and that I could get that into the hands of a skilled tradesperson who could respond to that and connect the two parties. I mean, back then you would thumb through the Yellow Pages, leave voicemails because these guys were never in the office. You'd leave voicemails, play phone tag for a week and a half, only to find out they don't service your area, they don't service your need, whatever. So what I wired together, was kind of crazy actually. If you think about it, like this is like 1999, early 2000. I wired this mousetrap together where you could submit a request in 30 seconds or less. We would take that request, including you could put in text comments about whatever's going on. We would take that and we would match it against, based on zip and task, we would match it to 3 or 4 tradespeople. We would text that to them because they were sitting in their truck. They all had like 3 hours of windshield time. So they're out in the field doing work. That's the only way they made any money. So we knew they were in the field, and we knew that the only technology they used were cell phones.
Hmm.
They were all those Sprint and Nextel guys, the walkie-talkie guys.
Yeah.
So
I
we would text.
I still had a pager, by the way, at that point. So I mean, it was.
Oh yeah. This is basic, almost pre-BlackBerry.
Mm-hmm.
So we would text them that lead with the details of it. We would embed an 800 number in there where they could one tap, dial it while they were driving. It would come into an IVR system. We would read back the person's comments from text to voice, and then we would find me, follow me, patch together with the homeowner based on the multiple phone numbers the homeowner left. So all we were doing there was taking that week and a half of getting paper cuts, going through the yellow pages and frustration. And next thing you know, you were talking to somebody. Literally, I remember this like it was yesterday. I knew we had something when we got this email that the person said they were talking to somebody before they got off of our site. Their phone rang, and there was a plumber on the other end, and they hadn't even left our site yet.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, yeah, and that's exactly what we'd say is we just we knew we wowed them at that point.
Yeah.
And so anyway, whatever the rest is history. We took the business from Mike and I in a one room office in the old Denver Club building in 19th floor of the Denver Club building. We had this red shag carpet room this guy had sublet to us. Our buddy had sublet to us, and we took it from that to $250 million in top line and 1,200 employees and blah blah. But today the business has over 4,000 employees, which is mind-boggling, and publicly traded and so on and so forth. Yeah. But anyway, it ended up providing.
How long did it take you? And was it according to a plan, time-wise? Did it meet your schedule?
No, I didn't really. I didn't per se have a schedule, but we sold the business. We started in '99. We sold it to Interactive Corp in 2004. I actually stayed on until 2012, so we continued to run the business. Chairman the last few years, but
and that's Barry Diller, right?
Correct. Barry Diller's Enterprise. Yep. And so and then they spun it out about 18 months ago, I think, as its own standalone public company. But
doesn't he get credit for starting Fox? Basically, wasn't that kind of his thing? Wasn't he one of the guys? I know he's a media.
I believe he was chairman of Paramount when he was 29 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he's gotten credited with several things. He was, real interesting entrepreneurial guy. Done some really crazy things in media. Speaking of gambling, first time I ever played Texas Hold'em in my life, we had this big Interactive Corp boondoggle out in Newport Beach, and we had one of these blackjack or these Texas Hold'em games where you're not playing for money, but you're playing for like a big screen TV or whatever. And, so everybody has a certain number of chips, and they do the whole collapse the tables down. Well, it goes from like 150 people to me and Barry and like 300 people watching us. And he's telling these fascinating stories. Like his weekly poker game was Jack Nicholson, Johnny Carson, and like, I can't remember. I mean, it was like surreal listening to tell these stories about his Hollywood life, but it's pretty hilarious.
I think he's married to a famous designer now.
Correct.
There you go. Von Furstenberg.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, he's a fascinating guy. We'll see if we can get him on breakfast at Stinsons. Becca, will you give him a call? Yeah. We'll see. That'd be cool. Or Diane, that'd be fun too.
Yeah, try to reach him on his satellite phone on his 365-foot yacht or something.
Right, somewhere. So, all right. So let's talk about Waldo. How did that happen?
Sure. Yeah. So I kind of tried to retire after leaving Home Advisor in late 2012. I spent a couple of years investing, advising, sitting on boards and whatnot. And then it was late 14, early 15. I just realized that it was just a void. Building a business is what I really enjoyed doing, and so I spent 9 months again, similar to back in the Home Advisor days, diligencing. In this case, it was a little less shotgun. I had 3 specific ideas that I'd jotted down somewhere, and what bubbled to the top of that exercise was Waldo, and Waldo's always been, so the problem has always been, in the front of my mind as a father. I've been a father for, as I mentioned earlier, almost 20 years. I have a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old. And so for the better part of the last 2 decades, I've just experienced this frustration around photography and people taking photos of Ann and of our kids, and but there just being way too much friction in getting them. And so whether that be from, 10 years of summer camp or 12 years of K through 12, or, 12 years of public school or 8 years of competitive tennis or trips around the world as a family or whatever, everywhere I turned, folks were taking pictures of our kids or our whole family. And it was always this, go look at this kiosk and weed through a sea of photos and try to find yours, or go online, days or weeks later and hunt and peck for your photos. And it just became apparent to me back in, I guess, 15, when I was really studying this, that the collision between artificial intelligence, the cloud, there's an app for that, mentality, and location awareness, I guess, really were the four colliding drivers that I saw. I felt like it was reasonable for us to assume that, let's say you're at DKR, at a football game, and you know how you see the lady hold up her little Gerber baby,
right,
in the Longhorn onesie, and that's a classic photo on the jumbotron. Well, it seemed reasonable to me that we should be able to drop that photo on her phone, onto the deck of her smartphone, in relatively short order with low latency, basically, when it's valued. And that's the key, is that photography has never been more valuable than it is today because of social currency. But there's a necessity to strip out the latency, because the photo is only relevant for a certain period of time because of how things cycle. So people want these photos, and there's actually I would say, especially with young females, and I've got two daughters, two of my three kids are girls. There's a quality war, so they've all got their filters and they're grinding over how they look. And so there's a real arms race around quality. So getting these real photos that people take of you with real cameras and real skill from a great perspective are valued, but they're really valued if they're delivered relatively quickly. And so that's what we built at Waldo. We built a facial recognition powered platform which combines mobile apps and a texting bot with algorithms, artificial intelligence, facial and object recognition on the back end, to help people get their stack of needles out of the stack of hay and drop it on their phone. And we're focused around families and those use cases primarily.
And it's live, right? I mean, you've got
yes,
it's working. People are. So where do you go?
So we so the way it's evolved, we did 4 pilots in 2017, actually, with summer camps, that we decided we were going to put a stake in the ground first and just harden the whole platform around that use case. And so we lined up 4 pilots, 3 in Texas and 1 in North Carolina in 2017. That blew up to 120 camps in 33 states and 1 in Canada this last summer. And now we're rolling it out into schools, and then we'll follow with youth sports from there. And travel will really probably be the last of the four legs.
And how do you, how do you staff that? And how do you manage the business just in terms of personnel?
Sure. So the way I've approached so we're headquartered in Austin, over on the east side, and I'm building sales and ops in Austin. So we have a small inside sales team that's calling on really these 2 enterprise verticals, schools and camps initially, and our operations team who take care of our customers. I think we sold 32,000 subscriptions to camper moms this summer, so there's obviously a fair amount of customer care there. On the engineering side, I've decided to go distributed. So when I looked at the landscape 3 years ago, it just seemed to me that if we could open ourselves up to the talent of the world on the engineering front, that we would stand a much better chance of finding incredibly talented, bright people that shared a passion for what we were trying to do. And in fact, that's what's happened. We have just an incredible team of engineers spread out geographically across the globe who work together as a team.
How did you assemble? How'd you do that? How'd you find them?
Yeah, so we developed so it took a while, but we've ultimately landed on a pretty awesome just recipe for doing it, where we post across marketplaces where people looking for remote work traffic, and then we have we've developed these code tests where they do a small project, and that helps us really see their work in really clear terms. And then obviously now we have a really talented staff to review that so that they can differentiate, between like my dad is a plumber and a real plumber. And so, so it's just, we just have a playbook
Nice.
for doing it, and pretty cool.
Yeah. And how many people do you have now working for you?
We have 15 employees right now.
Yeah. And here's your chance for the plug. So where do people go if they want to download this or start using your app?
WaldoPhotos.com.
There you go. So in the remaining time, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about this idea of a well-spent life, which we've talked about. Cicero wrote the book. Benjamin Franklin liked it. I actually just reread it, and talking to different people in all walks of life. So there's obviously some business folks, and we've got professors and musicians, and we had Marty on, the movie guy, and call him the movie guy. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. So let me just start with a simple question: is what would you consider, when you look at your life, how would you define success or a well spent life for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, we spent the better part of the last 30 minutes talking about business, other than our early escapades as kids, but good thing we weren't running for the Supreme Court. But
hey, no politics here.
Yeah, politic free zone. Good idea. Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about business, but for me, my life is really, for me, it's defined around being around fatherhood, and what my wife and I have done with our children. I think somebody asked me one time, like, what's the proudest moment you've had or what have you? And I remember, I think it was when Ryan, went to the pediatrician when he was like 6 or 7 years old. And they said, what do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, a dad. And, that was just incredibly gratifying for me. So for me, that's really what it's all about. The business stuff is, come and go.
Yeah, right. What how do you think you would have answered that at 20 when you're, 20, 21, 19? What do you think? And talk just how do you, what's, obviously I think I probably know the answer. I mean, you got kids, right? So that's the short answer, but what's the change? What was it, and what's the change?
I think when I was in my early 20s, I was definitely it was just a much more selfish view of the world, and a much more just sort of, I don't know, conquering mentality, like, or just looking at, I guess, taking money and business success, I think would have dominated. I remember this like it was yesterday. I mean, I can put it in tangible terms for you. That guy I was talking about that I was supposed to go to Asia with, which, by the way, I bailed on that part of the trip and took that job, obviously, with the Einsteins. But I remember when we were in Merrill Lynch's training class, like, we were all just young and arrogant, and we thought we had the world, by the short hairs. And we were all, I think our mantra was like 25 by 35. We were like, we all want to make $25 million by the time we're 35 years old. And that was like our goal in life. That was our goal in life.
Right.
Like that was the marker, and it was just so, I don't know, just
Are you glad you took the job and didn't go to Asia?
I am, yeah, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have met Ann if I hadn't, and then we wouldn't have the 3 beautiful children that we have. And so just, just fate, right? You never know. But obviously it's pretty weird to think about how one turn in life, one call from applause in Guatemala on a payphone.
Yeah.
And everything sort of rolled from there.
Are you a planner? I mean, do you map things out? Did you map things out when you were young? Hey, I want to be doing this when I mean, obviously you heard the 25 by 35, but when you're young versus where you are today, it's like, hey, in 3 years, I want to be doing this. I'm mapping this thing out. I got a schedule. I got very specific goals. Or,
No,
yeah,
no, I'm not at all. I'm just sort of a random path. I mean, I don't think it's worth it. I have a philosophy that I only spend time on things that I can control, only spend brain energy and time on things I can control. And I think this is a little bit in that same vein. Like the best laid plans would never happen anyway. So why put them on paper?
yeah,
But so yeah, no, I'm not that way at all. And I like change, and I like the uncertainty of life. I don't think anybody's really a technology entrepreneur, certainly not a repeat technology entrepreneur unless they're really really enjoy just complete ambiguity and uncertainty,
mm-hmm.
because
Yeah,
that's definitely front and center all the time.
yeah.
You have no idea what you're going to get hit with tomorrow, and that's really what I like. I like the freshness of that, the newness of that.
Would you say
um,
would you say you're pretty content? You're a content person for the most part?
yeah, I think so.
And
Absolutely.
and and so follow on question, do you think that comes more from circumstances, or do you think it's more genetic? I mean, do you feel like you were just sort of blessed with kind of a certain kind of personality? It's in your
Let
DNA,
me
or do you think it's a
yeah
result
let
of
me,
decisions or circumstance, or have you really thought about that?
well, yeah, I haven't given it a ton of thought, but I don't, and I'd even maybe ret- walk that back a little bit. Am I a content person? Um, I'm a happy person, but I don't know that I'm content. Let, I don't rest. Like I don't content as I think more about it. I'm not sure exactly the, the way you're thinking about it, but I'm not, I think
I
maybe
don't mean
I'm
I don't mean
not.
complacent either, by the way. So it can be,
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's couple different interpretations of that. But I would say I'm a happy person. I would say I'm not a content person. Like I always am. That also I think goes with the profession that I've chosen, sort of the way I operate on a daily basis. Like
yeah,
it's the antithesis of contentment.
yeah,
Like never good enough, never finished, never done.
yeah,
I mean, I have a real, I just drive, I like to drive. I drive things.
yeah.
I'm the opposite of content from that perspective.
Well, so it's funny you say that because I've given that a lot of thought, and when I survey the different people that I meet, that I have met, that I continue to meet, it does seem to me that a lot of people are just the way they are. Some people are just like, that they're just not the type that's going to be content, to be like, hey, I'm going to get up at 10 in the morning. Some people are like, they're fine with 10, or they're fine with, they're and I wonder how much of it is just kind of built into our DNA, right? The genetics of, you
Yeah,
know,
I don't know about the nature versus nurture. I know that my dad um, was always on the go,
hmm
and like his idea of a day was going to the office and doing 3 hours of surgery, playing 18 holes in 2 hours and 45 minutes walking, and then going and shooting, dove or quail in the late afternoon or evening, or fishing.
yeah,
So, if he wasn't like being a surgeon, a golfer, and a fisher, hunter, fishing or hunting all in one day, like it wasn't a day.
yeah,
And that rightly or wrongly, that's either encoded in my DNA
yeah,
I got it through osmosis or what have you, through nature, but or through nurture. But I don't know, but I am hit with that
yeah,
curse. That's very much, and my brothers are the same way. Like we're all pretty much the same
yeah.
way.
Well, I
We're just
remember
always.
playing some golf out of West Texas. You can get through 18 holes pretty fast in San Angelo, especially in the summertime when you can take a 7-iron to go 400 yards.
Yeah, well, my dad would walk. He did this up until 2 months before he passed away. He was doing this within 2 months of dying, but he would walk that course, and he was chain smoking cigars, but ultimately died of pancreatic or bladder cancer, which is kind of ironic as a urologist. But he would smoke a cigar when he was playing, and he wouldn't even take it out of his mouth. He would drive with the cigar in his mouth because that cost a few seconds bending over to pick it up.
Right.
Um, And I mean, literally, I mean, think about that. Like he's like 70 years old. He would
Yeah,
walk in 2 hours and 45 minutes.
that
That's
is
crazy.
amazing.
Yeah,
What's
it's pretty fun.
we're gonna wrap here shortly, but
Yeah.
curious, what's your ideal sleep pattern? You guys, are you up early every day no matter what? You up at the same time? Do you get a fixed amount of sleep every night?
I'm kind of, it's changed a bit with Waldo. But and having employees around the world, sometimes I get looped in and end up working pretty late. But I'm kind of a midnight. I sleep from sort of midnight to 6:45. I really would love to just. I would love it if I could just sleep about 6 hours a day, but I end up being sort of 6.5, 7.
Yeah.
Um, what are you doing these days?
Hey, I get to ask the questions. No,
I
I'm
know.
no. I've always been fascinated. I think I remember being in college and talking to you about I remember walking to the library. I remember talking to you. I probably talked to everybody. Was like, geez, I'm tired. I'm always tired. I was tired, kind of. But anyway, so I was always and I used to, and people have said this before on this show because we've talked to different people and always ask the question. And I think I get 6 to 7, but I would love more. But and
Yeah,
what's funny, when I was younger, I had a hard time going to sleep. I'd just be thinking about stuff. And now
I remember that.
I have no problem going to sleep now. In fact, this week, 2 days in a row, we were in Dallas. I was like visiting with my parents who just moved up to Dallas, by the way, and twice 2 days, sat down after the game Saturday, for example, and then yesterday afternoon put down. No problem going to sleep. Boom, just done, out. And my issue now is 4 o'clock. If I wake up, it's the issue's going back to sleep. So anyway, I'm always interested to hear what people actually do, what they claim to do. But it does seem like consensus, sort of 7 to 8 usually. But anyway, just curious.
I mean, I think you always see these old people that get up at like 5 a.m. And I don't know if at some point you just wake up one day and you're like, I'm running out of time. I better get up early in the morning.
I think about that
I
a
got
lot.
so many days left. I only got so many days left.
That's kind of how I'm already there. I wake up, but then the reality is I get up at 5, and then by like 1 o'clock I'm toast. So
Right.
anyway,
Yeah, I'm kind of getting to that point where I don't really want to allocate more than a quarter of my life to sleep from here on out because I'm running short on day.
that's exactly. I actually think about that. So
Yeah.
hey, thanks so much. I loved having you on. It was great talking.
Absolutely.
And look forward to seeing you in the flesh here one of these days. What we got,
Sounds
Baylor?
great.
We got you coming in for one of the games?
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to make it in. They're having Parents Weekend UT here in a couple weeks.
Okay.
So, yeah,
West
we're definitely gonna
Virginia.
make it over.
West Virginia is going to be a big one.
That's going to be a big one.
Yeah,
You think we can get it done?
I do.
Man, it's feeling like it's feeling like the old days.
I'm hoping.
Hopefully.
I was talking to
Yeah.
somebody yesterday, and the idea of them being ranked in the top 10, everybody's like, "Oh no, that's no good." We just moved up 10 spots, number 9. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun winning.
Yeah.
It's fun winning again.
Rodney, thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Talk
Thanks
to you
so much.
soon. Bye. Thank you for tuning in today. Breakfast at Stinsons. We were very happy to have you. Next week, we'll be back with another great guest. So please join us. In the meantime, come visit us at Stinsons. We're at 45th and Burnett Road. Come have a taco, a coffee, or a cocktail. Look forward to seeing you. Thanks.